Bonjour, ici Sébastien Goulet, annonceur à de nombreux Jeux olympiques. Vous regardez et écoutez PAA Game Day. Hi, I'm Sébastien Goulet, public address announcer for numerous Olympic Games, and you are watching and listening to PAA Game Day.
Welcome, the host of PAA Game Day and a public address announcer for Syracuse University and Colgate University, as well as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association for numerous championships, Tom Winiecki.
Welcome back, everybody, to PAA Game Day. This is our 15th episode, and we're really glad that you're here with us today. Now, if this is your first time tuning in, well, welcome. Thanks for checking us out, and we hope you enjoy this episode and maybe even go back and listen or watch a few of our past podcasts. And if you've been here before, a special thank you for staying with us. You won't be disappointed today. Whether you're getting this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, online at paagameday.com, or somewhere else, once we finish, please take a moment and leave us a review. Let us know what you liked or didn't like, and we use that constructive feedback to help us shape future podcasts. Here on PAA Game Day, we've gone behind the mic with public address announcers from professional baseball, football, basketball, ice hockey, horse racing, soccer, tennis, and the Olympic Games, you name it. We talk about how they get started, what it's like to work those major events, and the stories that you don't hear about during the game. Maybe even hear a bit of advice. Today's guest? Well, he's been behind the mic at 5 Winter Olympic Games and 1 Summer Olympic Games. But like a lot of us, his journey didn't start on the world stage. It started by tagging along with his dad to games and discovering that that sports environment is just too exciting to resist. He's been the voice of Olympic ice hockey since 2006. And if you're watching the Winter Olympics in Milano Cortina in February of 2026, there's a very good chance that you'll hear him once again. So let's get right to it. Sébastien Goulet, welcome to PAA Game Day. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
So let's get started right here. I've talked with a lot of people on this podcast, and everyone seems to have a great how it all started story. And I feel like yours is one that'll really resonate with our viewers and listeners because it just began with looking up and tagging along with Dad.
Correct. In the beer league, he was playing Friday nights. He had games starting at 8, 9:30, or 11 p.m. The 11 p.m. ones were always special because we would go out for pizza afterwards at 1:30 in the morning and grab a slice. And that's how I started fiddling with scorekeeping, basically. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and the person there, who was probably there working for $2 or $3 per game, let me actually work the scoreboard. So that got me interested in the whole off-ice official side of things.
Okay.
I might be one of the rare Canadians who can't skate for my life. I can go forward just about, but don't ask me to go backwards or to break. That's not going to be pretty.
Okay.
So I think that off-ice work was going to be the thing for me, and it got me very interested in the whole mechanics of communication with the officials, and actually the management of the game by itself.
See, you talk about ice times, and I can remember as a kid playing house league hockey, and it seemed like getting those late at night ice times or like 4 a.m. on Sunday morning were the best because you woke up and it was the whole day was in front of you and you'd already played a hockey game. You were raring and ready to go.
Oh, absolutely, you're right. And when he was changing after the game, the guy would let me play on the ice with his stick and a little shimmy on my on my boots, and while waiting for my dad to be ready. So that it was a great time.
Yeah. Now, not long after that, following your dad around, and you got a little bit older, there was an international ice hockey tournament, Bantam. If I understand that's right, it's under 15 tournament up in your hometown of Sherbrooke, Quebec, and you got involved in there. But how did you get your foot in the door in that international tournament?
I had started working as a scorekeeper at age 13 for hockey. I had been attending that tournament for the previous few years. It was a small building. It could probably fit at most 1,000 people. And they had teams coming in from the United States, and it was beginning to get a little bit bigger. The first year I worked, they had a team from Latvia coming in. And then afterwards, we had Russians, we had Ukrainians. And when I started working at 13, there weren't many people that were doing the actual announcing part of the game. We were scorekeeping and we were managing the clock, but there was a microphone available. And I thought, I've always wanted to do that. Why not try it? And announcing is actually part of scorekeeping in hockey. So I always made sure that the sound system was on and working and loud enough. And I started working, and the referees on the ice started noticing. And my first nickname was actually Claude Mouton, for the late, great Montreal Canadiens announcer, who worked until 1993. So I was Claude Mouton to them. And, being in the staff of the Sherbrooke Hockey Association, I started working the tournament and announcing the games. Of course, I would get the 8 o'clock starts or the 9:30 p.m. games because I was a first-year scorer. But they listened to me. They liked what I did. By year 2, I was doing the championship games. And the rest, led me to where I am today.
And now after that, from what I understand, you took a job with a professional lacrosse team from Montreal. And even though that team only lasted a year or two, it was the same presentation crew from the NHL's Montreal Canadiens, right?
No pressure. He comes to me, the manager comes to me before the very first game, my first pro gig ever. That was in 2001. And he said, "You've done hockey, right?" And I had done the junior team in Sherbrooke for 4 years, the Faucon, then they became the Beavers. And I said, yeah, I know hockey. Well, he said, we'll be listening and I'll talk to you after the game. And I thought, oh my goodness, does that mean what I think it means? And we had a heck of a game. The first game the Montreal Express ever played was in Calgary, and they beat a league record for most goals. They won 32 to something. So I thought, there's no way in heck that could happen again. They did win 23-12, their first game in Montreal, if I remember correctly. I had a grand old time doing it. And after the game, he comes down and he says to me, "You know what? We like your style. Our backup P announcer for the Canadiens had been there since 1976, and we want to make the tone a tad younger. So here's a pass. Come tomorrow night. We play the Rangers, and we'll show you how it works. And when Michel Lacroix leaves for the Salt Lake City games, you're going to be taking his spot." And I was beyond myself.
Oh, wow. Now, this was at the Bell Center, correct? Now, I imagine you've attended games at the old Montreal Forum and at the Bell Center as a fan, and being there now, it isn't Roger Doucette singing the national anthem anymore, but it's still the hallowed place for professional hockey. So what's it like working in that building, in that environment as a professional and not just as a fan? Or can you not even separate the two?
Well, when I grew up, the Forum was a mythical place, and I did manage to go to a couple of games. I was actually in the stands for Saku Koivu's first NHL game. He later became the captain of the Canadiens. But I have very little regrets in my career. I've never worked at the Forum. I wish I would have, but it shut down when I was 19 years old, so that would have been hard for me. But yeah, they say the temple of hockey, the Mecca. It truly is, and the fans make it special. What I have the chance of working, it's special in that building when there's nobody in there too for corporate events, and there's just something with that building, with the history and the banners hanging from the roof, that makes working there something very particular. And everyone that has had the opportunity to replace me, because I can't make every gig there, always says the same thing. I can't believe I worked here just to hear my voice, and that sound system in this building feels terrific. And it actually does.
Yes. Now, I know we're interviewing you and hearing your story, but hearing you talk about the old Forum and being the Mecca and a temple, I just have to share a story. I'm originally from Western New York in the Buffalo area. And in the early, mid, and late 70s, the Sabres were very, very good. And they could go to Montreal and play with the Canadiens. And at one point, they set up a series with Soviet teams. And one of the Soviet teams came to Buffalo, and the Sabres blew them out. I don't remember the score, but they doubled their score. For me, it was so much fun to watch. Their next game was at Montreal in the Forum, and I still remember watching this on Hockey Night in Canada. The Sabres came out to warm up, and the Forum crowd stood up and gave the Buffalo Sabres a standing ovation for beating the Soviets 2 days before. And I will never forget that moment. It was just unbelievable.
They may call it Canadian politeness, but Guy Lafleur came back to play with the Rangers and scored 2 goals that night, and that got the biggest ovation for a visiting team goal that anybody had ever heard.
Oh yes,
I believe that people in Montreal know their hockey, and they can recognize when great feats are accomplished.
Yes, they do.
That's good on them.
Now, with all those experiences we've talked about, working at that Bantam tournament, fidgeting with the scoreboard, working for the lacrosse team, back up for the Canadiens, was there one thing in that timeline that set the hook for you that said, this is what I want to do?
It's funny. The first small little mention in my local newspaper when I worked that tournament in Sherbrooke saying, you know what, we heard that guy, he's pretty good, and he's been saying the names right, and he's been, coaches have been happy with the way he's been saying the names for the Russian teams or the German teams, and that kind of got me, I'm doing my work, and people appreciate it. And that got me thinking, this could be something one day, but it had always been a sideline for me. So it always stood as a dream. And you know what? After all I did, it still is. And I'm always looking forward to the next gig.
Yes, and that's right. You never dread going to the next game. You can't wait to get there. Now, I also understand that you're in the voiceover field. Now, how did that side of your career get going?
Some TV producers that come to games would come to me after saying, would you be interested in doing some commercial work? Or, we have training videos that we want to make. Would you be interested in doing that? So the years went by and, I went to studios, taped my stuff. I have a little setup here at home as well. And I registered on a couple of voice sites. And the biggest gig I ever got for voiceovers was actually for the Christie's auction house for a Monet painting. And it's funny because the rate I received was, I think, 0.0004% of the price the painting was sold for. So I may have had asked for more, but it's an honor to be. They wanted someone that could say the native French name of the painting, and that's what got me the gig.
I gotcha. Now, with doing voiceovers and public address announcing, do you feel that they complement each other? Are there skills that cross over between the two?
Yes, and there's actually a third side of my career that is play-by-play work. And it's funny, people think that it's easy to go from one to another, but it really isn't. When I left for the Torino games in 2006, they had auditions because Michel Lacroix was going and I was going, so they were looking for a third string. And they got people from all over, radio, play-by-play, voiceover artists, coming to work one period of the Montreal Canadiens games. And hockey, it's a protocol. You always say the same things. The only things that change are the numbers, the names, and the time of the events. 2 for roughing is 2 for roughing everywhere. And for some odd reason, people that knew how to do hockey announcement could not work it out. I had people just have to leave after 10 minutes of play because they just couldn't do it. So they do complement each other, but they're not the same kind of work. And there is an adaptation to make from the voiceover work to the play-by-play work to the public address announcing work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine a script is a script, and there's times that you have to be able to change on the fly, maybe ad lib a little bit, make it read better, sound better when you read it, make it fit the atmosphere, the environment, the hockey environment. Yes, all those things that need to be taken care of. So, folks, this sounds like a good time to take a quick break. And when we come back, Sébastien will walk us through what it really takes to prepare for, announce, and live at so many different Olympic Games. We'll be right back.
www.publicaddressannouncer.org.
So welcome back, everybody, to PAA Game Day. We're here with Olympic public address announcer Sébastien Goulet. Now, Sébastien, you've covered ice hockey at 5 different Winter Olympic Games: Turin, Vancouver, Sochi, Pyeongchang, and Beijing. Now, you've also announced boxing and weightlifting at a Summer Games in Rio. Now, for most people listening, the Olympics are incredibly far out of reach. They're in another stratosphere. So how do you even figure out who to contact for that? And does someone formally apply for a PA announcing role at the Olympics, or are you chosen?
I don't like the term chosen, but it has a good ring to it. The first one, pure streak of luck. The internet wasn't as it is today in 2005, and I did manage to find the competition manager's name for the Torino 2006 hockey tournament.
All right.
Some gentleman in Norway. And I found his email and just wrote him a letter saying, I've been the backup for the Canadians for 3 years. Michel Lacroix has done the Olympics in 98 in Nagano and 2002 in Salt Lake City. So he's been my mentor basically for the past 3 years. And, would you have a spot for me? Uh-huh. And at the time, Torino were the last games where we had French, English, and the home language announcements in game. Mm-hmm. Right now, French is limited to the victory ceremonies, of the medal ceremonies at the end, because it's an official Olympic language. You will hear it at opening and closing ceremony as well. But in game, not as much. They thought it was, time consuming, and they want to make everything a little bit quicker. And I thought, that's a stab in the dark. There's no way in heck someone in Norway is going to reply. But, I took my shot. And as luck would have it, 48 hours later, the gentleman answers, "Oh, my goodness, that's interesting. The Montreal Canadiens, eh? And you know what? I have a meeting next week in Torino, so I'll bring your CV with me, and we'll see how that goes." And that actually got me into Torino as the third string French public address announcer.
Wow.
And then they figured out that we could also do English, so we started doing a little bit of both. And once you go to the games and you do the job correctly, they tend to call you back. What people need to understand is that we have different groups that are doing the sport presentation business department at the Olympics. There's a firm based out of Long Beach, which was called Van Wagner. There's a company in Australia that used to be called Great Big Events that's now called RWS. There's a company in London that's called the Sport Presentation. There's AWE in Brazil. Yeah. And all these companies bid to be the ones that have the contract for sport presentation for the Olympic Games. And once you're linked to one of them, usually the other ones don't call as much unless you're recommended by people. And everybody knows each other in that department and in that the sport presentation world. So once you do the job and you do it good, then, you show up, you help out your producer, you help out your fellow announcers, which, you go to Italy, for instance, there are no international hockey tournaments there often. So you help them out and you do the work, and they tend to call you back. And that's how, Torino led me to whatever followed. And I'm very lucky for it.
Well, that's what a lot of people have told me, both here on this podcast and in the announcing world. You never know who's listening. Every
Correct.
Game is an audition. You never know. Now, previously, Sébastien, we had PJ Kwong here on the podcast talking about her Olympic experience, that primarily being in figure skating. And she emphasized the level of preparation required for something on such a huge stage as the Olympics. Now, what's it been like for you preparing for, announcing, and then living at those Olympic venues across those 6 different cities, each with their own different cultures, expectations, and atmosphere? What was that like?
It's a trend I've been setting for the past 20 years now. When the rosters are published, and it was the case for hockey in just the past few weeks, I started working on my lists. I'm a member of a few sites that have actually the player pronunciations on them. So I listened, I write them phonetically for every single team, men's and women's, because we're going to be doing both. And you never know who's going to be playing the quarterfinals or the semifinals. So you prepare every team. Even though you're not doing them in the round robin tournament, you never know when they can show up. And if you can't find it out, usually we fly to the games 4 to 5 days in advance, and we will work at the venue on the technical aspect of things, making sure we have our timings right and everything. But when we have time off, we go down to ice level and meet with team representatives with the rosters and say, pronounce the names. I'll try to repeat them and correct me until I have them correct. And the teams have been appreciating that a lot. And I've had comments in previous games in Pyeongchang. Someone noted on Twitter that my Czech pronunciation was fine. Well, it's because the guy was in front of me and I was saying that gentleman's name until I had it right, and I wrote everything phonetically, and that's how I've been working ever since.
Exactly. And you may have had the same experience. Well, I'll do that. I'll call collegiate field hockey, and there's a lot of players from Western Europe playing. And I ask them to repeat their name. And if I don't get it the first or second time, the player will say, oh, that's okay. That's close enough. No, it's your name. It deserves to be said exactly the way it's supposed to. And besides being a bit of a pain trying to get it right with this poor athlete, afterwards, they appreciate the fact that you value their name and make sure that it's said correctly. Exactly.
Correct.
Now,
And when you say you never know who's listening, their parents might be in the stands or watching on television.
yes,
And if they can acknowledge that, they've heard their son or their daughter's name pronounced correctly, that's all there's to it.
exactly. Now, when it all boils down to it, with preparation for the Olympic Games, does that Olympic prep compare to somebody that might be listening or watching today that has to go through prep for their local or collegiate, or maybe they're working at the professional ranks in the United States? Is there anything different that you do, or preparation is preparation?
I went to go for pronunciations when I was looking at that U15 tournament in Sherbrooke. I met the teams back there, and I started taking notes at that time. The level of competition doesn't matter. If you want to do this job and have the opportunities to move forward with them, you need to do the work, and that's part of the work, and that's the part of the work that people acknowledge the most. If you do the right pronunciations, you will be invited again to work this tournament, another tournament, an international tournament, who knows? So do the work. It's important.
That's right. That's exactly right. All right, folks, another good time to take a quick timeout. And when we come back, Sebastian's going to talk to us about being bilingual. And trust me, it's more than just speaking French and English. If you want to know more, stay tuned. Announcing the Game is a free resource to public address announcers that take you through how to take your skills to the next level. A simple click on the sport gives you free access to a video that goes over terminology and rules specific to a lot of sports. So take a look. See if we can help you improve your skills. So here we are, folks, back with Sébastien Goulet. Now, Sébastien, you describe yourself as bilingual, but you take that a step further. You describe to me that you speak both Québécois French and international French. Now, for those of us that don't speak French, what's the difference between the two, and when do you decide to use either one?
Kudos on the word Québécois. You said it very, very nicely. Yeah, French is my native language, and being in Quebec, we have a different accent than people have in France or Belgium, for instance. And mind you, there's a lot more hockey in Quebec than there is in France, so the actual penalty terms will differ from one to another. Cross-checking in Québécois French is double check, which means double check, basically, so two hands on the stick. In France, they will call it charge sportive, so sport check, so check with the sporting tool. It doesn't have the same ring to it. You need to be able to recognize that. And if you announce a tournament in France, you would use the French terms from France. But when I went to Torino the first time, funny story, charging in hockey is when you take a couple of steps and you hit someone. The Quebecois French term for it sounds very much like when you say the a-hole word in English. So I do the very first penalty announcement of the games, and I have Alan Roach of the Colorado Avalanche, voice of the Super Bowl, famous guy next to me, and we can speak to each other without being the sound on in the bowl. So I do the penalty. Allow me to do it in French. Punition numéro 17, Luc Tremblay. 2 minutes pour, and then the French term for charging is 2 minutes pour assaut. And then I have Roach in my ear saying, "Did you just call him an a-hole?" So I changed it for the France term afterwards because I thought, there might be some confusion. At the Pan Am Games in 2015, bantamweight, I was doing boxing, and bantamweight in French is poids coq. But, the animal, not the other thing.
Uh-huh.
And of course, Tim Hughes, who was there by my English announcer, would always hassle me on that word. And he called me, the Cub du Canada and everything.
Oh, yeah.
It's an actual sports term. I can't do anything for it. The language barrier, it hits you sometimes.
Yeah, well, I guess you have to forget some of our professional ignorance at that point. And now, when you described your English,
Yes.
I can't wait to hear how you talk about this. You described it as general North American English, not Canadian. What does that mean?
Well, my parents can't speak English. My dad has very limited English. My mother doesn't speak it at all. So my first English teacher, mind if I show you? He's right here. Bob Barker.
Okay.
I actually learned English at home by watching The Price is Right.
Really? Oh.
4 years of my life. I was very good in English, and I could identify car brands very easily. That's what my mom said. I've taken English classes in elementary school, secondary school, college, and everything. But the fact that I learned from an American source, but that I was taught in Canada, meant that I don't have the about and out that a lot of Canadians have.
Yeah.
So people from Canada think I'm actually from the States, and people from America might still hear a Canadian accent. So that's why I say I have a generic North American accent for English.
Oh, wow. Now, you started to allude to this a little earlier with being multilingual and working these events. But how do those language skills, and you talked a little bit about a penalty in France and the same penalty in Montreal. But how do those skills become an advantage for somebody in your position at an event like the Olympics?
Well, French is the official Olympic language, so there will always be French, at least in the ceremonies part of it. So that kind of gives me an edge on going back because, they don't have to hire a separate French person from an English announcer that can work the games. And it goes beyond that because when you travel to Italy or to South Korea or to Russia, you do need to pick up a little bit of the language to bond with the locals. And the locals form 75 to 80% of the work staff there. So, I can say hi and thank you in Russian, Korean, Chinese. You need to bathe in the local culture. In Beijing, it was inside the bubble, but we were there during Chinese New Year's. And they had us make dumplings. And there was a camera crew there from the local news. And I don't know if you knew that, Tom, but the most watched program on New Year's Day in China is the news. So there were over 1 billion people watching that piece on us making dumplings. I didn't have a clip, but when we came back to the hotel that night, my fellow DJ and producers who were in that feature were stopped by staff that wanted pictures with them because they had been on the news that day. So it's important to taste the local culture. You never know when you're going to get back.
Yeah.
But that's a little bittersweet, though, too, at the end, because you spend 3 weeks of your life, 16-hour days with the same people every single day, and you bond. I bond with my, Chinese announcer and my Russian announcer. And then by gold medal game, you're with those people, and your flight is the day after. And there's a very, very good chance you're never going to see them again in your life.
That's right.
So it's very bittersweet when it comes towards the end of the Olympic Games. You try to keep in contact. I have WhatsApp groups from games prior that are still active, and people kid each other and keep on telling the inside jokes that from the past, like 5 years back. But you need to acknowledge that, we are the privileged ones that get to work every 4 years when you're reinvited. Mm-hmm. Some people do make it, mainly on the producing side.
Yeah.
From, I have my producer in Italy for Milano coming up. It's from Brazil. So he was there, started in Rio.
Okay.
And managed to work the ranks all the way to these games 10 years later. So it's good for them that they did manage to make it. But for most cases, you make great friends, and yet you'd never see them again in your life.
Well, that's it. It sounds like the relationships that you build as a public address announcer or a play-by-play announcer, in your case, or a voiceover artist, with the people you work with. So you get called back because they know I can work with Sébastien. He's going to be a pro. He's going to do the work. I trust him to do the work. the same thing, the relationships that it sounds like you develop with people from all over the world covering the same sports you are, you know exactly what each other's going through. And then those inside jokes mean a little more because you've all gone through that same gauntlet together.
Correct. And sport is sport. I mean, hockey in Italy or China or Russia or Canada, it's all the same. It's the same game. And, you bond with on-ice officials as well that come from all over the world. And it's funny because the management of the game is different within each sector of the world. Europe doesn't manage hockey games the same way as Asia does or as North America does. But it's always in the same mold at the end. You drop the puck with 60 minutes, game on, and may the best team win.
Exactly. All right, Sébastien, we're going to finish with a couple of rapid-fire questions that we ask all of our guests. So first, out of all the events and venues that you've worked in, what's one moment that stands out? One where the fan in you wanted to get up and scream with everybody else, but that PA announcer, little person on your other shoulder, said, all right, Sébastien, take a breath and do your job.
I had great advice from Michel Lacroix before the Vancouver games, actually before the Torino games. He said, one day you'll be part of something great and you won't realize it because you're so busy doing your job. And that's actually the mentality that I had when I worked the golden goal game in Vancouver. I was the French voice when Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal. And we had two scripts. USA wins, Canada wins. So we tossed the USA wins one out. Sorry for you, Tom. And, first reflex of a P announcer at hockey, we note the time. Then we get the goals and assists. We announced a goal, go straight into our script, do the medal ceremony. And then, we were talking about the wrap party going on that night. We were meeting up at a restaurant and everything. And we took our sweet time because it was a crowded event. So we go down to the office. I actually have a prop with me, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
On my way down to the office, I walked past the Canucks dressing room. The whole team had left. I mean, the party was over. It was probably 90 minutes after game time. So I thought, this building will not be used anymore. Why not pick this up? So this is the official Team Canada dressing room side.
Oh,
from
wow.
the Vancouver 2010 Olympic Games. So I have that in my office here. So we say goodbye, see you guys at the party in a few hours. Then I exit the building, and the people were screaming and yelling and honking. I thought, what the heck is that? Oh, right, we won the gold medal in hockey. And, they were swerving the subway and everything. I thought, okay, that's a party. It's a nice party, but I never acknowledged the fact that we won the gold medal until I was out of the building 2 hours after the game ended.
Oh, you were just so engrossed into what you were doing and the mechanics of what you're doing. That's right. Just like your predecessor in Montreal said that you're not going to realize it, and it happened to you. Exactly. Oh. Now, on the other side of that, something that's come out of your mouth, I know it's happened to me and all of us, and you instantly want to stuff it back, and you hope against hope that nobody heard it, but you know deep inside that they did. Any of that?
People think that since we have announcer voices, we can sing. I can't sing. And, I've been asked to sing Happy Birthday once or twice on the microphone, and that never has gone down well. So I'm not saying yes anymore. I will play a song if I'm a DJ for that event too, but don't ask me to sing. I'm not singing in public anymore.
Oh, wow. Now, all of us, we've all had mentors. We've had supporters, people that helped us along the way. So, Sébastien, let's flip that on its head. If you could give one piece of advice to a public address announcer out there listening or watching right now, no matter their level, whether it's their son or daughter's youth league game or it's the Olympic final on the ice, what would that one bit of Sébastien wisdom be?
Do what I did. Take your shot. Send an email. Reach out to someone. Do your work. Prove your talent. And know that there's people out there that are looking for people like you that can do the job, that will do the job, and you never know when luck is going to strike. So send out that email, send out that reel tape, and make sure people hear you. You want to work a national event? Find a contact for it. Send your stuff. You never know when it's going to work out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You never know when that lightning bolt is going to strike. Now, to close things out, after everything you've done, what keeps you coming back to the mic? After all these years, what stops you? And we touched on this a little earlier. What prevents you from having a feeling for that next game on your calendar that this is just another game?
The relationships you build doing these events, the fact that you get to be part of one of the greatest shows in the world, and I think the most important thing is because I still love doing it.
Yes,
it's been an honor doing that for the past 20 years, the Olympic Games. I think I've worked more Olympic hockey matches than I've worked Canadians games because Michel Lacroix never comes down sick. But I still love it. I love the people. I love the sport, and you can't take anything for granted in our stream of activities. So as long as they keep calling back, my answer will always be yes, and I will do a professional job and give myself 100% to it.
Yes, to know that you enjoy the game and calling the game, and you also enjoy the preparation and the work that nobody sees you do. When you enjoy all that, like it sounds like you do, this is all gravy. This is all golden for us.
Correct.
Now, folks, that wraps up episode 15 of PAA Game Day featuring Olympic ice hockey public address announcer Sébastien Goulet. So, Sébastien, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's been every bit as informative and as fun as it was advertised. So, thank you.
Thank you for the invite. It was a great time.
We all love this. This was a blast. And to everybody out there watching and listening, thank you for joining us today. And wherever you're getting this podcast, please take a moment, sign in, and leave us a review. Your feedback helps shape our future episodes, and we'd really appreciate that. And in our next podcast, I'll be sitting down with Sam Laterna, a ring announcer for professional wrestling. So for all of you out there, thanks for watching and thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time on PAA Game Day. I'm your host, Tom Winiecki, and I can't wait to hear you on the mic.
Roll sound. Sound production, take 2.